right, welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, and today I have the distinct honor to introduce our trainer here today, Josh Legler, who is a NEMSIS TAC consultant. The title today is the NEMSIS Git repositories, and so Josh is going to walk us through how to use the NEMSIS Git repositories. You're going to learn how to download your own copy of the repository, how the different versions are organized into the branches, and how to look into the history of the changes of the files. It's always great having Josh as someone here because you're so knowledgeable about the details of everything with NEMSIS. So we invite you to take advantage of the Q&A uh, uh, question and answer window in Zoom. I will curate those questions. So if you will type your question into the Q&A, and I will politely interrupt Josh at an appropriate point, and so that I can ask the questions here. If yeah, if you have any questions there, or if you can utilize the chat to message directly to me if there is something that about the presentation that you need to let people know. This session will be recorded and will be posted on the NEMSIS YouTube and main website. So if you want to get a recording of this and share it with colleagues, any interested parties that you may want to share it with, that will be available. We usually have it up by the end of the week by Friday, usually earlier, but we leave a little bit of time. We have a lot of stuff going on in NEMSIS this week, so by Friday at the latest to have this updated. If you want to get notified about events like this and other important announcements from the NEMSIS TAC, search for NEMSIS TAC on your favorite social media, Facebook, Twitter X, Instagram, LinkedIn. Also follow Josh on LinkedIn. Josh, you have always wonderful posts and reposts that are super useful for our industry there. So Josh is a wealth of knowledge on LinkedIn. Make sure that you follow him on there. So with that said, Josh, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you, and thank you so much for presenting today.
Thanks, Chris. Today we'll be talking about the NEMSIS Git repositories. I'm looking through the attendee list here, and I see quite a few people from vendors, which I think is fantastic. I would say without a doubt, vendors should have their own copies of the NEMSIS Git repositories, and so I think this will be helpful to you. I also see quite a few people from state EMS offices, and this could be a really helpful resource for you as well. And I think we even have a couple local EMS agency representatives in attendance today. So welcome, thanks for being here. NEMSIS uses Git repositories to manage the publishing and maintenance and development of the NEMSIS standard and all the associated resources and files that support and make that standard implementable. And I was surprised earlier this year when the NEMSIS repositories went offline for a couple months, how many people didn't have their own copy of the NEMSIS repositories. And so they were stuck with nothing until those repositories came back online on the NEMSIS Git server. So we want to try to avoid that kind of situation. The cool thing about the Git repositories is that you can have your own copy of them. And so if anything goes offline, you've still got everything in your copy. So we're going to be showing you how to use those Git repositories today, how to get your own copy, and how to utilize what's in them. To show you the agenda for today, I have one slide to share with you, which will be just an overview of what is Git. And then we're going to switch to demo mode. I'll turn off PowerPoint, and we're going to just go onto my computer, and I'm going to clone one of the NEMSIS Git repositories, the public repo. And then I'm also going to show you the state repositories. There's one for each state and territory. We're also going to look at using Git just through git.nemsis.org, how you can just use it in a web browser. And then lastly, I'll take a couple minutes to finish up with talking about the API that developers could use to interact with the NEMSIS Git repositories. Along the way, as we look at all three of those different ways of interacting with the repos, we're going to look at how you get to the files. We're going to talk about branches, which is how we organize the different release versions of NEMSIS. Tags, where we tag specific builds of NEMSIS. We're going to look at commits. That's every time a change is made, there's something called a commit. And diffs, where we can see what changed in a specific file when a commit was made. So by the end of the session today, you should be familiar with all of those terms and how they might be important to you. Okay, well, let's get started. Let me get out of PowerPoint here. Oh, whoops, before I get out of PowerPoint. So what is Git? Git is a distributed version control system that's capable of managing versions of source code or data. So the first thing you might think is, NEMSIS has versions, 3.1, 3.2, we're up to 3.5.1 right now. So we can manage all those different versions and all that history over time in a version control system. And it keeps history of all the changes that have been made over time. So Git maintains a local copy of the entire repository, also known as a repo, with history and version tracking abilities, independent of network access or a central server. So what this means is if you clone a NEMSIS Git repository, you're not just pulling down the current resources. You are pulling down the full history of that repository. Every resource that ever exists, every change that was ever made in that repo, you have all of it in your local copy. You have the full history. Git is the de facto standard version control system. There are offerings of Git repository services, including GitHub, SourceForge, Bitbucket, and GitLab. So Git itself is the version control system, the software. And then there are different services that you can go to on the internet that offer some kind of Git repository service. And so if you've heard of GitHub, that's an online service that hosts Git repositories. Or if you've heard of GitLab or SourceForge, they all host Git repositories. I've highlighted Bitbucket because that's the particular tool that the NEMSIS TAC uses to host their Git repositories. Okay, with that, we're going to switch gears and get some demo going. And I would encourage you, if you have questions, go ahead and submit those in the Q&A at any time, and we can pause as we go to answer questions that come up. Okay, let's switch gears here. All right, I'm going to start on the NEMSIS homepage. And I'm going to point out before we dive in, there's a link in technical resources called Resource Repository. And if I go to that page, there's a link to the NEMSIS Repositories Guide. This guide you'll see is about 6 pages long. This has all the details about the NEMSIS Git repositories, how to interact with them, how they're organized and maintained. So if you have questions, or especially if you're trying to really kind of do something with these repos, I'd recommend that you refer to the repository guide. And a lot of what we'll be covering today is stuff that's in the guide. Okay, then I'm going to go to the NEMSIS Git repository. There's a link here on this page, or at the bottom of every page in the footer is the link to the Git repository. So I'll click on that, and this takes us to git.nemsis.org. As I said, the particular product they use to host their repositories is called Bitbucket. And right off, I can see a bunch of repositories. I see the NEMSIS public repository, which is where we're going to start. And then I see repositories for all the different states and territories as well. All right, so I'm going to go into the NEMSIS public repository. And where I'd like to start is actually getting a copy of this repository on my own computer. So I can hit this button here, which is the clone button, and it's going to give me a URL that will allow me to clone this repository on my own computer. I can hit the copy button to copy that URL. And now, before I can do that, I need to have Git on my computer. Well, one way I could go is I could download source tree, which is the Git client that Atlassian provides, complementary to their Bitbucket product. So that's an option. There's also just the standard Git client, which I'm going to show you. So yeah, actually, let me just do Google searches. If I just search for Git, the top result will be Git. If I go to this website, I can see a download here for the Git client. I've already installed this Git client on my computer, but you'll need it as well to clone the repositories. This will give you a command line Git client where you'd have to type all your commands to interact with the repository. And it has kind of a simple GUI that you can use. But you'll notice that it also has a link here to Windows GUIs. And there are some suggested tools that you can use that provide more of a graphical interface for you. TortoiseGit is the one that I'm going to demonstrate today. TortoiseGit provides right-click integration in my Windows Explorer shell so that I can interact with the repository right there within Windows Explorer as I'm looking at files. But there's plenty of different options out there for a Git client, but you'll need to have something. So I've got the basic Git client, and I've also got TortoiseGit. Both of those are installed on my computer now. Okay, so over here, when I was in the repo, I went ahead and copied the clone link. And let's go ahead and clone the NEMSIS public repo. So I'm just going to pick a spot that's open on my hard drive. I'm going to right click. This is the TortoiseGit stuff here. So I can say git clone. It's automatically already pasted in the link that I copied. And I'm going to hit OK to clone the NEMSIS public repository to my own computer. I'm actually doing this live. It's going to take a minute or so to do this, and I wanted to just demonstrate it live like this. So what's happening right now is it's reaching out to get.nemsis.org, and it's not just pulling down a few files, it's pulling down a copy of the entire repository. Every file that has ever existed in the NEMSIS public repo, every change that has ever been made, every note, every tag, all the branches, everything. Once this is done downloading, I have a full copy of the NEMSIS public Git repository. I'm not missing one single thing. So it has it's almost done receiving all the objects right now. There, it got all the data. And now what it's going to do is it's going to actually check out the most recent version of all the resources on my computer. So I get the repo. I also get everything checked out that is kind of the current status of the repository. Okay, so it's all done. And I'm going to show you the log of this repo. Here's the log of the branch that's currently checked out, which happens to be the NEMSIS 3.5.1 resources. Those are the latest current resources. But if I scroll down on this log, I'll go all the way to the bottom here. Here's the very first commit, the 3.0.5 110927 build on September 27th, 2011 by Jorge Rojas. So I can go all the way back in the full history of the Git repository. That's 14 years right there. Okay, well let's take a look at what I got. So I cloned this repository. It's called NEMSIS Public. And you can see it has several folders there. And let's go ahead. You'll also see TortoiseGit is indicating this is a Git repo. It's got green check marks next to things, which means everything is up to date. I'm going to go ahead and switch to 14 years back. So let's go to a switch or checkout. And I can go ahead and pick that 3.0.5 version of NEMSIS. You'll notice all these versions are named release hyphen and then the 3-digit version number. So let's go to release 3.0.5. Click OK. And now this has checked out the resources as they existed back, get this reloaded here. They're back in version 3.05 in 2011. I can go into the data dictionary folder and drill down and look. Here's the PDF data dictionary from September 27th, 2011. I can even view the HTML version of the data dictionary. Let's go ahead and open that up. There it is from 2011. All those resources from 14 years ago right there. I'm going to switch back to the current release. Actually, let me show you. Yeah, let me show you the revision graph. So TortoiseGit has something called revision graph, and this will show me kind of the I guess you could say the genealogy of this repository, starting from 3.05 and working its way up. And what you see in kind of light orange, these are all of the different branches in the repository, and we have one branch for each of the point releases of NEMSIS. Along the way, we also have tags for the specific builds of NEMSIS with those dates at the end. I'm going to scroll up closer to the top so you can kind of see the whole pedigree here. And we start getting to more recent stuff. 3.3.4 had several builds. 3.4.0 had a bunch of builds. And then we start getting into 3.5.0. It had a bunch of builds. And finally, 3.5.1. Then there's a branch called master. Master is always set to be synced up with the latest completed released public version of NEMSIS. So master used to be set to sync to 3.5.0 until 3.5.1 was finished a few months ago. And now master and 3.5.1, they have the same resources as each other. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and check out 3.5.1 again. Let it do its thing here. Okay, so now I'm back to 3.5.1 checked out on my computer. So now if I go to the data dictionary folder and drill down in and bring up this data dictionary, then this is the 3.5.1. Okay, so same path, everything pretty much, but now I'm getting the 3.5.1 version because that's what I've checked out onto my computer for now. Now, same thing, I could bring up the HTML version of that as well. And could go ahead and navigate my way through the 3.5.1 data dictionary just on my local computer. Okay, say we wanted to look at things that changed between two different versions of NEMSIS. Well, we can do that. I'm going to go to the log again. This is showing me the log on the 3.5.1 branch. And let's say I wanted to compare to 3.5.0 and see what changed. I can click up here and choose release 3.5.0 and see the log for that release. And then what I can do is, let's say I want to look at everything that changed, between the latest 3.5.0 commit and the latest 3.5.1. Well, I have 3.5.1 checked out on my computer. I'm looking at the 3.5.0 log right now. I can compare that log entry with what I have checked out on my computer. And this is now showing me a list of everything that's different between 3.5.0 and 3.5.1. For example, I could look at the case definition files. And the case definition for cardiac arrest, if I double click on that, it shows me exactly where the differences are between the 3.5.1 version and the 3.5.0 version of that file. Another thing I can do is look at the history for one specific file. I'm going to go down to the WSDL And if I want to see how the WSDL has changed across the 14 years, I can right click on that specific file and say show log. And it's going to show me all the log entries that made changes to the WSDL. So again, I can go all the way back to 2012 when the first version of the WSDL was added. And I can look at any point. Let's see, the most recent version that was made to the WSDL was back in 2020. If I double click on this here, it'll show me exactly which line changed in that file on that date in 2020, what it used to be, and then what it is now. I can also do something called a blame. Let me bring that up. What this does is it'll tell me who made changes to the file at what time. So a lot, for the most part, this was Jorge back in 2014 that made the change that we see currently in the WSDL. If we scroll down a bit, we'll see some other contributors. Here's a change that Laurel made in 2019 to add a response code to the WSDL. So those are some of the things you can see with the blame. I have a question from Karin. Is the level of detail you are showing only available via TortoiseGit? What about the online version? This detail is available in the online version too, and I'll be showing you that actually in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so that's stuff that I can do because I've got my repository, my clone of the repository from the NEMSIS TAC on my own computer. And if that repository went away, that's okay. I've still got my clone, my full copy with all history. That's the NEMSIS public repository. There's also a repository for each state where they publish their state data set, their schematrons, and additional resources that might be helpful in their states. I'm going to show you a little different view now. I'm going to go into Visual Studio Code where I have opened up a folder that, and I've cloned all of the state and territory repositories. So each one of these is its own repository, has files within it. Look, for example, at Arkansas. We've got all of their files there, including their state data set. So there's their state data set XML file. Whoops, help to, well, I would need to format that. It's all on one line, but there it is. Or their schematron file for their patient care report data. So all of that is there. And because I have all of the state's repositories cloned on my computer, I can view history on all of these files. I can see exactly how and where they changed, all of that. But also, I can do whatever I want with these files. So oftentimes, someone will have some question about the NEMSIS repositories, some kind of overview statistical question. And I can usually answer that question with a quick search of the repositories on my computer. Or sometimes I'll make a little XSL script where I'll parse through some files and pull something out. And so, for example, I've made one where I count the number of rules in each of the schematron files that the states have published. That was a question that came up a couple of weeks ago at the NEMSIS annual meeting. The question was, how many rules does each state have? And what's the variability there between states? So I made a little XSLT that would get me that answer. I can run that XSLT on these files that are on my computer. It's going to look through all of those schematron files from all of those states. And then it's going to give me a result. Just rename this so open up a little better. So here it is. It listed each of the states and the number of rules in that state's schematron file. I'm even going to go find that file on my computer and open it up with Excel. So there we are in Excel. We've got all the states and the number of rules that they have in their schematron file. And then from there, maybe I want to see a chart. Maybe I'm going to go for a histogram so we can see that most states have between 1 and 100 rules in their schematron, but some states have more. And the ones with the most would be Idaho with 440. This is all stuff that I can see quickly because it's all cloned on my computer. Okay, let's see. So before I take a pause, let me kind of clean up here and go back to the website, get.nemsis.org. Under projects, we had NEMSIS states. That's where you'll find the repository for each state, and you can clone each one or interact with them just online through get.nemsis.org, which will be kind of where we're going to move next. So let me take a sec. I don't see any open questions right now, but if you have any questions about what I've shown so far, now is a great time to ask. Okay, I'll kind of watch and see if anything comes in. So I'm going to switch to the second way of interacting with the Git repos. I love having it on my own computer because if anything goes down or I lose internet connection, I've got it all right there. But you can also interact with the repositories just through get.nemsis.org and see all of the same stuff that I showed you. Okay, so let's go to the NEMSIS public repository, which is NEMSIS public. There's one repo in that project called NEMSIS public. Okay, I'm currently on the master branch, which, as I said, is synced up right now with release 3.5.1. I can click through and see the files. So let's go, for example, to the data dictionary folder and down. And so, for example, here's the PDF data dictionary. It can't show me that file online because it's a PDF, but I can download it and then open it on my computer. I can also see the HTML versions, but I can't browse them here. It's going to instead show me the source code for those files. I could get to maybe the defined lists. And here's the defined list for medications. Here's the CSV file. I could download that if I want through the raw file link. Or I can get the JSON version of the medication list or the XML version, etc. Those are all there. I can also explore branches here, and that's right here where I can switch between branches. Or I can click a link here on the side for branches. It's going to show me a list of all the branches. It'll show me the last time that each branch was updated. And I could switch to any of these branches. So I could go ahead and switch to, I don't know, 3.3.4. Oops, that one is not letting me. Let's get back here. See if I can get to 3.3.4. There we go. So using this drop down, I'm switching to 3.3.4. And then again, I could drill down, see the data dictionary as it existed in 3.3.4. We know back then we didn't have defined lists, so that folder's not there, but we have suggested lists, all of those resources as they existed in 3.3.4. You'll notice also when I click here for branches, I can also look by tags. And so if I really want to get specific and say, I want to look at the 350 191130 CP1, that what it looked like exactly at that build, then I can switch to that one. And I've got the resources there. Okay, I'm going to go back to the states project. And let's look at commits and diffs, which we looked at on my computer. Now we're going to look at it online. So let's take a look at Arkansas. Here's their repository. And I'm going to go ahead and look in their schematron folder. They've got their schematron file for their patient care report schematron. Go ahead and click on that. Okay, so that's showing me their schematron file as it exists today. There's a button here that says diff to previous. This will tell me what changed when this was last updated by John Britt on the 8th of July. So line by line, it'll highlight for me which lines changed and then exactly what changed in those lines. So I see here in this one, uh, they took away an empty space. Well, that's not significant, right? That's a change that doesn't make any difference. But then I see on the next one, they added a parentheses here. If I scroll sideways, I can see that they added some additional criteria here to this assertion test. So I know that that rule had a bit of a change. And so on down through, I can see every rule that changed and exactly where those changes were in that schematron file. So that's using Git at git.nemsis.org. All of the same sorts of resources. Oh, I didn't highlight the blame, but there's the blame button. So we can see who changed what when over the years. All of those same resources here. It's just that you've got to be able to have access to the repo. It's not on your own computer. Okay, that's the online version. Not seeing any new questions coming up, but if you have questions about how we interact with get.nemsis.org, feel free to put those into the Q&A. Okay, lastly, I'm going to show you the API. This is going to be more for developers, people who are writing code and they want that code to develop some automated workflows for interacting with the repositories. Before I do that, Karen asked if she could ask a question verbally. Chris, would you be able to unmute Karen or allow her to unmute?
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
Okay, great.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
So my question, as was my first question, was how do you download a schematron file? So you do it by the raw file. But here's my question. So Josh and NEMSIS team, I know that you already have an Excel document that compares the NEMSIS schematron file with the comparison of 350 versus 351. However, let's say I didn't trust you and I want to do that myself. Can you do that comparison here on the web, or is it best to download each file and use another tool to do that comparison?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was definitely able to do it in TortoiseGit with the copies of the repo on my computer because I could, I've got 351 checked out right now, and I could go to, so let's get back to 351. Here we go. In the public repository, I could go specifically to the schematron folder and to the rules and look at, for example, the EMS dataset schematron. I could look at the log for that. I could switch to 350 in the log. And then compare that to what is currently checked out in 351. There we go. And so then, yeah, so here we can see, you know, elements that were added because they're new in 351 and so on. And then, you know, here's a handful of rules that changed between the two. Let me think if I can do that online.
And Josh, is that how you created the nice Excel spreadsheet that shows the changes?
Yeah, basically. Yep. I make the changes and then I just do a diff and I look through the diff and then I write up, you know, I'm kind of interpreting what I see in the diff and writing up those changes.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the on,
if you could do
oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll mute now.
Oh, okay. In the online version, yeah, I can diff to previous. I'm trying to think if I can diff to a specific commit. I'm not sure if I can. Let me see. If we go to release 350, I'm in the Arkansas schematron here, but yeah, in fact, let me get to back to the NEMSIS public. Whoops. Down into schematron. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'll be able to get that same kind of specific release to specific release comparison. I can diff to the very previous release on 351. I can do the blame, which will show me everything that hasn't changed versus has changed over the years. The other thing I could do is I could go ahead and download this raw file, and then I could switch to the 350 branch to that version of it, and then I could download that raw file, and then I could use a diff client on my own computer to compare the two files. That might be how you'd have to go. Okay, thanks for the questions. All right, so the third way to interact with the repos, if you're a developer, is to use the API. The NEMSIS repositories guide from the NEMSIS website, that'll have some information and links to the Bitbucket API. So you can get all the technical details there. I'm just going to kind of demonstrate for you how the API is actually used today by some of the NEMSIS tools. So I'm going to go to the NEMSIS website and go to the schematron library page. And I'm going to open the developer tools on my web browser so that I'm going to see the network requests that are happening. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the schematron library. Okay, here's the schematron library. It says it's loading, and we can see all the states kind of lighting up as it loads their schematron files. Okay, so what happened under the hood? The schematron library is simply some code that causes your web browser to go use the Bitbucket API to reach out to all of the state repositories, national custom elements, and the national public repository, and grab the schematron file from each of those repositories. So I'll see down here in my network requests, a bunch of requests like this. I'm going to go ahead and expand this up right now, where it's contacting get.nemsis.org through the API, and it's asking for the most recent commit to the schematron folder in that repository. So maybe I'll pick Arizona here. And the response that it got back was that there was a commit on the Arizona repository made by Jen. It has a timestamp of when that commit was made, and then what the message, what changed. Okay, so what the schematron library is doing in your web browser is it's looking at that commit, and it's comparing the timestamp to the last time you visited the schematron library in your web browser. And if there's been updates since last time you visited, then it's going to re-download that schematron file. So if I scroll further down here, here's where we're downloading. We're making an API request here to download the Arizona EMS dataset schematron. So it makes that API request to get.nemsis.org, and then it gets, there's the schematron schema that got returned. So that's one example of how the API is used when you browse the schematron library. Custom element library uses that API as well. And then also the state pages. So let's kind of keep this up a little bit. Let's go to the Arizona page. Okay, and when I bring up this page, it's showing me links to the different resources that Arizona has. And it also has additional resources listed there. And it also has the change log. All of this is being generated when you visit this page, because your web browser is making hits to the API. And so it's looking at, for example, give me a commit history on the release 350 branch. And it gets that there, and then it formats it and puts it into the web page for you. So those are the kinds of things that can be done using the API. Vendors, you would typically use the API to do things like, hey, let's watch the repo for changes. Whenever the XSDs change, we want to know about that. Or let's watch all of the state repos and let's have an alert to someone in our company whenever a state changes their schematron schema. Or maybe we're going to automatically go ahead and process that change to the schematron schema, or a change to a state data set. They added a facility. We know exactly which line changed because we can look at the diff. Our software can get the diff, right? So the API gives you that software level interaction with everything. So vendors, that's a great opportunity for you to develop these sorts of automations. Another way you could go is you could clone the repository into your own development environment, and then you could use the API of the Git hosting tool that you use and use the API to hit that. That way you're hitting your own resources, and you can, make guarantees to yourself about those resources being available. So I hope that vendors can see some opportunities here to automate their interaction with these repositories. All right, so that wraps up the presentation for today. Just throw this agenda back up here. So we looked at using Git on your own computer, cloning the repos. We looked at using git.nemsis.org in your web browser, and then finally the API. We looked at getting files, branches, tags, commits, diffs, blames, all of those things. So I'll pause here again and see, we're open for questions, and we have a full 15 minutes if there are any questions that you'd like to bring up. Okay, so Marcus asked, what ways have you seen this being leveraged by individual agencies? I'm not sure at the agency level personally, but what I would foresee is since your agency works in a particular state, it could be helpful for you to watch that state's repository. So, for example, if you're in the state of California, then you might want to go look at the California repository. You could obviously view California from the map and get to the California page of the NEMSIS website. Got all the resources there, but it might be handy if you're familiar enough with Git to go ahead and find that state repository for California, and you could clone that repo, and you've got a copy of all the resources on your own computer. Also, I've seen analytical uses of this data. So people who are trying to analyze NEMSIS data, oftentimes, the raw data that you get just has a bunch of codes. Well, the XSD files are the files that translate, that say what those codes are, that give them labels. So you can parse the XSD to create kind of those crosswalks or mappings between codes and labels. And so people heavy into the research side can use the resources from the repo to kind of automate all of that work of their research. All right, and then David asked, how often do you recommend re-downloading or updating our locally cloned copy? Once each upgrade version or more frequently? That's a great question. For the NEMSIS public repo, these generally change infrequently, this one repo. However, you will see, aside from the tagged commits, there are definitely other commits going on. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So we haven't had one, the most recent was 22nd of August, and prior to that was 27th of May. There was a flurry of activity in March as the critical patch was released. Some stuff back in February. You'll see it's, fairly frequent with minor commits. There are minor files that are changing. And then the state repos, each state may update their repo anywhere from once or twice a year to maybe monthly. So what I did is I wrote a little script that I can run that just does a poll on all of the state repositories. So in fact, that's something I should explain. Once you've cloned a repository, you don't need to re-download it later. Let me get to the NEMSIS public repo here. Okay, NEMSIS public. What I can do is right click, and in my TortoiseGit menu, I have a pull command. What this will do is it'll only pull anything that's changed since the last time that I pulled. So if I do that right now, it's actually going to just tell me that I don't have any. It says everything's up to date because I just pulled it 45 minutes ago. So those pulls will be really fast because they'll only grab the resources that changed. So yeah, you could just set up a scheduled thing, or maybe every time you want to use the resources, you might just do a poll first before you jump into your project. All right, and then Drew asked, this system is chiefly restricted in usefulness by not correlating schematron to state data sets, in addition to lack of start dates for either. Is there any plan to address this? Today's training, the scope of today's training is to show you the repositories and how the repositories manage the data. So not the actual contents of that data or managing the contents. So states, looking at like how do they keep their state schematron and state data set kind of in sync with each other? How do they make sure they're not putting something in the schematron that they haven't accounted for in the state data set and vice versa? That's the responsibility of the states to manage things kind of at the content level. But what you will see in the repository is that you've got both of those files there. You can read both of those files and you can evaluate them. So another script that I wrote that I didn't show you today was I wrote a little XSL that tells me what are all the custom element references in state schematron files that point to a custom element that is not included in that state's state data set. So that's what the repository makes possible for me to do, is to actually evaluate those sorts of questions. Okay, any other questions? All right. I think we've wrapped it up with the questions then. Thanks everyone for attending today, and I hope that you can take these Git repos and really put them to use in your own environments. Chris, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. Big virtual round of applause. Josh, it's always fascinating. I'm sure this will be a very popular video on our YouTube channel as people revisit all of the information that you gave here. We'll be able to see where people go back and actually watch this again to remember where on the website to download this, which link to click on to get to the different things here. So wonderful resource ongoing here. Great session. Thank you so much for taking the time and doing this today. Again, as we do these, generally we do these trainings once a month, unless there is some sort of event that, such as our annual meeting, that or holidays or something like that, that kicks it off the calendar. But if you want to make sure that you are notified about this and other events that are going on in the NEMSIS TAC, if you would sign up for our newsletter. If you go to the nemsis.org webpage, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a red button that says join the mailing list. If you click on that, and we will send notifications for events like this one and other things that we're doing, like the V3 calls when the annual report release, like it did this last week. Very excited about that. If you get a chance, you can go to the NEMSIS website, check your email, and you can see that the new annual report is out. You can also be notified about this and other events if you go to pretty much any of the most popular social media websites, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Twitter, and search for NEMSIS TAC. We post most of the events like this, and we post research that's based on the NEMSIS data, so that you can see where all of the outcomes, where all of the hard work of getting and analyzing this data is going and improving EMS care. That said, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks again, once again, Josh, for this informative training, and we all hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks.